because I come from an incredibly patriarchal family. So men had a very specific role, women had a very specific role. But I could see and I could watch the finesse with which all auntie would facilitate a decision, even though the uncles didn't want it. You know, I would watch how my mother would facilitate a decision, even though my dad didn't want to make it. And you learn quite intuitively almost how to get people with whom you have, or over whom you have no authority to do what you want.
Wow, fascinating. Tell us more. What did you used to do?
Where I'm from, I've said this before, I don't know how to be second. I wasn't raised that way.
Ooh,
so
okay.
I don't know how to be second. I don't know how to subordinate. I was not raised that way. I was raised to believe I'm a king. That's how I was raised. And I was raised to believe, even if I walk into a room and I don't have the means, I can acquire them. If you send me to the jungle, I'll come back the head of the pride. I'm that guy, right? I'm like, so there is a certain psychology that goes with that. Now, when people don't know the genesis of the psychology, they'll have words for it, so they'll call it arrogance.
Yes.
And it's just because they don't get it. So you asked me the question, what kind of employee was I? And the reason I was a terrible employee was, one, I could never subordinate. So I never bought the idea that because somebody had a different title, they were better or knew more.
Yeah.
I just thought they had more experience. But experience is a function of time, right? Which is the only variable man can't control, is time. So if I can't control the experience or the time aspect, the only thing I can control is the knowledge acquired over time. Which means what took you 10 years to acquire,
It would take you
I'm going to do it in a year. And I'm walking into the elevator and there's my boss. He fired me and then invited me to his house for dinner. I'll never forget. And true story.
Was it trying to just rub salt on the wound, or?
No, it was a very important lesson, and it's a lesson I've come to learn, which is how you deal with people is an important reflection of you. And we are never ever to personalize performance issues. So we can be friends. But when we meet at 8 o'clock, if my role is X and your role is Y, do your role. And I will keep you accountable to your role.
How old were you when you started your first business?
I was 23 so maybe a bit of my, so the best thing that I've had several things in my life that have happened to me, but one of the things I've learned over time is almost every single fortune has been a function of a burden or a curse. So, and I suppose it's something human beings quite don't understand. Everybody wants the nice life. Nobody wants the burden of it. I am now mature enough to know that my God put me through things, and when I was going through those things, it looked like He had left me. But actually what He was doing was preparing me for my kingdom. But I just didn't know. You know, it's like I didn't get that what he was doing was he was saying, Moses, you got to walk through 40 years of the desert. Otherwise, you won't understand the promised land. That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
So, and there have been several times that's happened. The loss of my father at 13 was one of them. The second time was I got kicked out of university. You know, I couldn't afford to pay my fees, so I was financially excluded at the end of my first year at Wits. So I went and got a job because I needed a job. It wasn't like, you know, I went and got a job. You know, I say this to entrepreneurs all the time. Over the years, I've never seen a business plan where projections say you are not profitable year one. And yet, 98% of businesses that get started die in year one. Because, you know, Excel is so nice, guys. Excel is like our best friend. You know, you plug a formula. And then Excel says there's a loss. You go, no, let me change it. So I go and I start my business. I had an office in Centurion where Accenture has their office now. That was where my office is.
Yeah.
Had an office in Centurion. I took out a lease on this office. I had an assistant. I paid 3 months rent up front. I paid my car 3 months up front, yada, yada. And then the sales never came. You ever open shop and nobody walks in? The sales, and I tried every single trick in the book. Everything I had learned whilst I was employed, I tried. And everything failed. And it was only then that I grew to appreciate the pressure of being the boss. It was only then that I understood why my first boss fired me. I got it. I was like, holy.
Yeah.
So I ended up living in my office. I lived in my office for 7 months.
What?
Yeah, I lived in my office. I slept in my car.
Okay.
My sister's here, she'll tell you. I slept in my car. It was interesting. The reason I slept, the reason I slept in my car was because, remember, I paid for the car 3 months up front. But then the 3 months lapsed, and then I couldn't pay for the car. And banks are fascinating things, isn't it? So the bank rang me up, and the bank calls and they go, you know, you've not paid. I said, I know. And the lady says, when are you going to pay? And I thought, do I lie to her? So I said to her, I tell you what, why don't you pick a date? And she said, why? I said, well, then we'll both be surprised when that date comes and I don't pay you. Because I don't have the money now and I don't think I'll have it. And she, true story, she was on the phone, she picked the date, she put the date on the system, she said, I'll put it on the system, and the date came and I didn't pay her. She was surprised and I was surprised. But the bank, you know, banks are interesting creatures, and banks are great normalizers of ego.
Yes.
Anytime your ego gets ahead of you, just go to the bank. It's a great way to check yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the bank rang me up and they said, you've not paid for your car. It had been another 3 months. They said, you're not paid for your car. We need to come and collect it. It's a lovely word they use. It's called a repossession.
Yeah.
I love the word because there's almost the idea that I possessed it. Now you're taking it back, isn't it? It's like a expropriation without compensation. So the bank called me up and they said they wanted to repossess the car, and I couldn't surrender the car, if for no other reason but because I was trying to build a business. How was I going to do client meetings and late night meetings and
where were you going to sleep?
And where was I going to sleep? So I'll never forget the day. I'll actually never forget the day. It was a Wednesday, and I was on my way home, and my mom phoned me, and she said, "There's somebody here from the bank, so I suggest you don't come home." True story.
High five to your mother.
Yeah. So in fact, what happened is my mother prepared a little kit bag with clothes in it, and I drove home, and I went not to my street but to the next street, and they came around and they gave me the kit bag, and that was the last time they saw me for months.
Wow.
And I went and I parked downstairs in my basement. I was up every single morning, 4 o'clock. Every single morning I was up. I'd go upstairs into the bathroom. I'd clean myself. I'd change and I'd work every single day until 11 o'clock at night. Every single day. Because this is, and if you're an entrepreneur, if you hear nothing else from me, just remember this. Faith is action in the absence of evidence.
Yes.
And if you cannot pursue, even when there is no evidence to suggest what you're doing is working, don't even try it.
Don't even, yeah.
Don't even try it. Get a job somewhere.
Because remember, you didn't have enough time to now make a lot of mistakes. You didn't have enough resources as well to try out this and that. What is it that you had to now implement quickly?
Single most important skill any entrepreneur can learn is sales. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're a coder, you're an engineer, you're a mechanic, you're a beer brew drafts. I don't care what you do. The single most critical skill you will learn as an entrepreneur, and it is 10 times more important than every other skill that comes after it, is sales. So if there's one excuse I never accept from entrepreneurs is I can't sell.
Yeah.
Then don't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There's many other. Go be an accountant somewhere. Go practice HR. You know, there are companies that have nice long meetings and people sit and they have cookies and biscuits and there's an agenda. Go there.
That's where they belong.
That's where you belong. But in our world, we sell. So
I like that.
So that's the first thing. And the second thing I want to say to your question is, I also hate entrepreneurs that have the idea that they've got to have runway before they start a business. And there's this pervasive culture now in South Africa. You know, people go and create a business plan, and the business plan I say I need 18 months runway, and I'm going to raise capital, and there's 18 months. Who's runway? Where are you running? On whose money, right? Because somebody has to pay the piper. So you want to start this thing, and you're telling funders, we've got to part with money to fund your dreams? I got my own dreams, player. I'll find my own dreams.
Yes.
So the single most important skill you'll learn is sales. So what did I do? I sold. I used to do this thing called burn the line. In my business today, the team will tell you, I still tell them, burn the line. You know what that means? It means you pick up the phone, you come up with a telephone directory, and you do not put that thing down until you close a sale.
Wow.
I don't care what you say. What are you selling? HR consulting services? How do you think you're going to do it? Invite people for coffees at Melrose Arch?
Doesn't work.
That won't work.
Yeah.
Run an email shot on MailChimp? That won't work. A clever little campaign on Twitter, Facebook? That will not work. Get on the phone, get a directory, pick up the phone, and dial the fucking number. That's it. It's not... It really is not that complex. Even today, people don't know, guys don't know, even today, I sell. When the team has the sale they've got to close and they need the big hitter, they pull Vusi in. And I will walk in and I will close. That's what I do.
So,
If you're an entrepreneur today and you've been in business for less than 3 years, a task for you when you leave here. When you leave here, designate one day in the week, designate a morning in that day. You start at 9, you finish at 11. You come up with a cold call list of 200. You know how I know? Because in 2 hours, you'll make 200 phone calls. And here's how the rules work in sales. It's 10 for 1. You make 10 phone calls, you get 4 appointments, 1 sale. But if you don't make the 10 phone calls, the 1 sale doesn't come. When you've done that, and you've got clients, and you're billing, and you're doing work, then you can worry about what's my website look like? What does my brand look like? Putting up an Instagram picture of you in your nice car. And but then you can do that stuff. And it's a great lesson for entrepreneurs to try. Just try this for yourself. If you ever lack motivation, just imagine your worst nightmare is coming true. Imagine the worst nightmare coming true. Imagine you've got 0 money in the bank account, your biggest customer leaves you, and your biggest competitor doubles on revenue. What would you do? Okay, there's nothing like a good crisis to galvanize effort. But what I do sometimes is I force myself into the crisis. So I go, things are comfortable. Excuse my language. Let's fuck shit up. I look at any artist that succeeds, thinks of it, I look at Black Coffee, great example. I know him well. You talk to that guy, the guy's not a DJ. That guy's a machine.
yes. Yeah.
He understands marketing, product, pricing, operations better than most CEOs of listed companies. He's a machine, right? He is a businessman. His business is just music, but he's a businessman. I feel like you could write a book and just title it, Talent is Never Enough. Because there are stories, books, poems that can be written about people who made the presumption that talent was enough. So the reason artists typically do that is because they just want to be the talent. Because they think in their minds, I can sing. I know you can sing, but can you send an invoice? But in today's world of ubiquity of information, the zero marginal cost, the internet of things, you have no excuse not to know how to do something for yourself. Zero. Human beings go through different stages. First, we go through the stage of wondering whether or not we're capable. Then we go through a stage of proving we're capable. Then we wonder, could we help others realize they're capable? Right, so I'm just at the third stage. So
Wow.
I wondered and I proved it, and now I'm going, well, now that I've done it, could I help other people reach their own potential?
Okay.
Let me tell you, if there is the biggest challenge I have ever faced on my, and I'll say to the team today that I think we should write a book on scaling. Because I think the single biggest challenge entrepreneurs face is scaling.
Yes.
But the biggest impediment to scale is the personality. You know, and the hard part is, how do you remove your soul and embed it into this inanimate thing called a business, a PTY Ltd with a VAT number, and know that it will deliver it regardless of whether or not you're there. So how is it that Apple still creates the most intuitive products today, but the founder died years ago? How did he leave him? I don't know if you guys get it, but at a philosophical level, like, how did he remove his soul and put it in it? Like the guys who started McDonald's. How is it that anywhere in the world you go, when you go to a McDonald's, it's exactly the same? They remove themselves and embed themselves in the business. And it has a little bit to do with process and operations and efficiency and manualing and standardization.
Yes.
You know, Lean Six Sigma, all of that stuff. It has a bit to do with it, but that's not it. Because even if you get that stuff right, if you don't get the passion, the commitment, the human drive, there's a certain you got to bring to the work. That you either have or you don't as an entrepreneur, right? You know what makes the American economy great is in America there's those two words that make the economy tick. You're fired. In this country, somebody doesn't deliver, you to fire them, you must take them through performance review, then performance management, then you must... guys. I'm going to tell you guys a personal story.
Okay.
Please don't share this. I never battled with taking off a lady's bra. No, because when we were younger, my mother couldn't afford to buy underwear. So she wore bras that didn't fit, and they would chafe into her. And every night when she came home, she would ask us to take off her bra.
Okay.
Now, it sounds,
Like
for a woman to make that kind of sacrifice, you gotta, so that's what my mother sacrificed for us. Then we went through this very difficult period, and now, I'm sad about that. A bit sad about today that I don't get to perhaps spend as much time with my kids as I'd like to. So I'm also very obsessive, which is, remember my thing? You learned it in 10 years, I'll do it in 1. Yeah. It's not just a philosophy, I live it. So, for instance, even though we're in the same city, my family lives in one place, I live in another. I live in an apartment which is a block away from the office. Why? Because between Monday and Friday, there are no distractions. I'm fully about work. I could drive to my kids in 20 minutes. But Monday to Friday, they know Dad is at, so that it works like it. I hear entrepreneurs today starting businesses, and you're in the very first 10 years, and you're talking about a work-life balance. In 10 years, work-life balance.
Yeah.
So there's no such.
Would you? I mean, you've got the only guy who succeeds is the guy who's willing to do what the other guy's not. Right? You're going to leave at 8. I'm leaving at 8:30. You leave at 8:30. I'm leaving at 9. You take an hour lunch. I'm taking a 30-minute lunch. You get it? So you've got to bring that level of intensity, commitment to everything you do. Success, guys, I'm convinced about this. If somebody wrote a formula on success, nowhere in it would be good looks and personality. Nowhere in it would be luck or where you were born into. Success is just time, application, commitment, effort, and ruthless dedication to what you do.
I was reading one interview online, and you said, I think this lady was asking you, what can you say about female entrepreneurs and female black entrepreneurs? And then you said, yes, you're black, you're female, and then what?
Yes.
You know, do people want your product? Are you good?
Well,
You
not just if I may, and I know we've got another question, but not just to black females, and I'm going to say something which, if somebody here tweets it, I'm sure Black Twitter will have a field day about it, but what the hell? It's not just a message, I think, to black female, it's just a message to black people. So, I've not yet reached my pinnacle, but I've done well enough to know that nowhere have I done well because I'm black.
Yes.
And everywhere I have been where people try to denigrate my success to blackness, I've rejected it. He said something to me which was interesting. He said, in business in the first 3 years, your best odds of success is about using the case method. So I said, what's case? He said, copy and steal everything. If you're an entrepreneur in the room, listen to this. There is no problem in the world an American has not solved. None. I promise you now. So if I was you, rather than spend time trying to create, I'll just go, who else has done this? And then you case. You need the innovation, you need the talent, you need the capital. It's really not that complex. So do we have the innovation complex? My view is we do. Do we have the talent? My view is we do. Do we have the capital? Well, that's the problem. In the US, and I don't want to drag this question on too long, but I just want to give him a full answer. In the US, consider for a moment that Facebook ran for 7 years pre-revenue. Not pre-profit, pre-revenue, which means they ran for 7 years not selling anything to anyone. For 7 years, they were in beta, testing the product. They were recruiting, and they were building the set of matrices they required to build a business, right? Amazon is now the world's largest retailer by market capitalization. It's been around for 15 years. For the first 13 years of Amazon's existence, it made losses. Now, as a person who runs a business, I know when you have a loss at the end of the year, it's funded from two places: shareholders' funds or debt. So who was funding Amazon's losses? Right? Somebody funded it for 13 years, even though it wasn't making money.
Sure.
So the power of what America does, you're seeing it now with the Chinese doing it. You saw it with, in Kuala Lumpur they do it. The Malaysians do it. Now the Colombians are doing it. And we just are not getting the message. What you don't need a state funding agency. You don't need 2 state funding agencies. What you need is 100 venture capitalists. Each of them with 100 million. And each of them willing to exit deals to each other. Because then here's what will happen. Beth will start a business. I'll fund her for 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, she will have proven the concept in the business model. She still won't be profitable. She'll do another capital call and I won't want to participate, but I will know that he does. So I'll call him and I say, I've got a deal. I've funded it for 2 years. It's now at less risk because it's been running for 2 years. Fund it. And so he will. And then number 3, number 4, number 5. By the time they get to the 7th or 8th iteration of the funding round, it's now running and it's a profitable business. But here, what happens is you got to start day 1, be profitable day 1, cash flow generating day. Do you get it? So if you want to build an entrepreneurship ecosystem, it's really not rocket science, the stuff you've got to be doing. Why is it not happening? Very simple reason. Because wolves led by sheep are still sheep. So the problem we have in South Africa is that the people driving the entrepreneurship conversation have never been entrepreneurs. I live on hip-hop music, by the way. But there's a beautiful line by Drake. He's talking to his mother and he says, don't ever take advice. That was the best advice. So the best advice I give to entrepreneurs is, even though I'm going to give you this advice, when I'm done, don't take it. And I'll tell you why. Because if I listened, I wouldn't be here. Like if I listened when they told me, don't do this, don't try that, I wouldn't be here. This thing is called entrepreneurship because I must trailblaze. I must walk this path. So what's my view on diversification versus focus? For me, there's almost, intuitively, I want to say to you that there's almost no question. For the first 40 years of its existence, Coca-Cola just had one Coca-Cola with one bottle. Yeah? So today it's very in vogue. You find entrepreneurs that create mini holdings. And then you say, so what do you do? Well, I'm in construction, and then I'm in energy, and I'm in catering. What are you doing? Like, what's that? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So my view, and if you're one of those entrepreneurs in the room, it's okay. But if my view, focus. One thing. Do one thing, try it, fail, and then do. It's a bit like dating. Just one.
Okay, Vusi, before I let you go, oh my God, I wish this conversation could just go on. Don't you guys wish that? What is your cry for African entrepreneurs? Just to wrap up.
Just wake up. You guys are sleeping. You know, there's the young people say you're sleeping on yourself. You guys are sleeping. African entrepreneurs, you guys are sleeping. Can I be honest? You're sleeping. You're entitled. You're lazy. You have a quick return syndrome. You have too many expectations too quickly. Just wake up, guys. Wake up. It took 30 years to build Apple. It took 40 years to build Dell. It took, 40 years to build Microsoft. And this is in the world's largest economy. You're in the bottom of the darkest economy on earth. How long do you think it's going to take you? Wake up.
Yeah.
It's not just about the effort, but wake up on everything. Wake up to the opportunities that are alive. Wake up to the political systems that govern us. Just wake up. Be awake. Watch what's happening around you. Read, love, live, learn. Be in spaces. Be involved. Just get in. Get in. Take this plug of yours in life and plug it into the cord of the system so that we can all be in it together. But just wake up. too many of us are sleeping. We're doing the same things we've always done. You're doing the same things everybody else has done. And then you're waiting for the world to come and meet you halfway. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Just wake up. And the minute you wake up, you'll see that the world is an incredible place. Just quickly, let me just say this. So, my view is books have not yet been written, nor has history been imagined of our capabilities. The greatest thing that ever happened to Africa when they denied us endeavor, enterprise, individuality for hundreds of years was that they gave us no template to copy. So why are we copying it? Every single person in this room, do you get, when you're an entrepreneur, you are version 1. You're it. There's never been an us before. Before this, they were in trenches at our age fighting for stuff. We are version 1. Let's wake up. Write the template. Do the crazy wild things. Let's make mistakes. Let's wake up, guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming through.